Would you always recommend having an estate plan to, I guess it doesn't entirely avoid probate, does it? But like, is that step one for you guys to advise, okay, there should be obviously something put in place within an estate if there's multiple people involved?
I mention it at the end of every transaction. I hope it doesn't come off as sales pitchy to clients, but it's just kind of a generic, if you have an estate plan, this is a good time to review it to make sure it all still syncs up with your new acquisition or sale. And if you don't, let me know, or if you want to discuss it, I'm here. Where estate plans come into importance. So, estate plan, what does that mean? A will. So, a will takes effect from the date of death. You pass away, who is going to be managing your estate and where your assets going to go? So, who's benefiting from this? That's typically the one that people are most familiar with. If you don't have a will, the government does actually set out what's going to happen to your estate. So who it's going to go to and what percentage or what dollar amounts or whatever, just depending on your family dynamics. The next of kin situation, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's kind of how you can see it. So as long as you're okay with that, you can go without a will. It makes it a little more complicated for your family because there's no one written in the document saying, I'm going to be the one stepping up and going to talk to the banks or dealing with the lawyers or accountants. So there's a few extra steps, but it's not the end of the world. Where I say that a will is 100% essential once you have kids, because that's also where you appoint guardianship for the kids. And then if you have any specific wishes for the property itself. So making sure if you wanted it to go be sold or held or whatever that's going to be, that would go in your will. The piece of your estate plan that I think is the most important, ignoring everything else that's going on in your life, if you own real estate, you should have a power of attorney in place. So what a power of attorney is it's a document that appoints someone who would be able to sign legal documents on your behalf. They can do some other things too, but keeping it to real estate. If you could picture this situation where my husband and I own real estate together, and we've lived a long, happy life, and now all of a sudden, oops, Dani has dementia and she needs to go into a care home. She can't, support herself. My husband's not going to be taking care of me to the extent I need. We need to sell the house so that I have money to pay for the level of care that I need. I no longer have the mental capacity to sign to sell the property on my own. And funny enough, this other spouse doesn't either, unless there's a formal document appointing them to be allowed to sell it. So power of attorney, you spend a couple $100 to set it up. The goal is it's good until the dawn of time. I've used some from the 80s, 90s, and they're as good today as they were back then to allow that to happen, right? So it truly is allowing you to access or use your money or assets, I guess, in a way that makes sure that you can actually live out your days. Kind of the way I view it is, again, ignoring if you have kids and making sure they're provided for. I'm gone. If my assets go to the wrong place, it's not going to affect me personally. If I need money and to sell a house so that I can fund care for myself, that's going to directly affect the end of my life and how I'm living out my days. And I really care about that.
Yeah. Can you retract the POA, power of attorney?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. You absolutely can. So as long as you have capacity, you can retract it. It's best to give notice to the other people who you've appointed under your existing power of attorney. Where that's most important is if they have an original, they kind of have a loaded gun that they could go out and transfer property or do whatever. So it's kind of the formal notice saying, hey, you no longer have these powers. But again, it's kind of one of those things, you give notice, but you can revoke it at any time. You can change it, do a new one. Typically where we see people do power of attorneys is when they're doing the rest of their estate plan. And then typically once their children reach of age that they would feel appropriate appointing them. So typically people kind of do 2 power of attorneys over their lifetime. So again, for a couple $100, it's money so well spent in my eyes. The alternative is, so let's go back to my scenario. I need to go into care and no one else has been appointed to be able to sign to sell my property for me. There is a process through the court, but you're talking, it can be months in court, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in legal fees. You'd be kicking yourself if you didn't have that one document in place. That to me, again, if you're responsible enough to have a mortgage and buy real estate, you're responsible enough to get a power of attorney done so that it's tucked away. And if anything happens, you're good to go.
Yeah, they should almost make it mandatory, like as part of the process, eh?
Yeah. Well, in my eyes, yes. But there are also people who they're saving every single penny they can, right, to buy their first home. And I get that. But I think, again, as long as people get the advice that, hey, now that you have this, this beautiful asset, you need to think about kind of the worst case scenarios of what happens if you need to sell it and you can't. Or power of attorneys are great. You win the lottery and you're out on a fabulous vacation. Someone can go deposit your check for you. Like, perfect.
Yeah, hey, if I'm on vacation and I win the lottery, I'm happy. Yeah.
Right? Well worth it.
Yeah.
So well worth it.
I love the
Yeah.
optimism.
So it's kind of one of those things. I think it's money so well spent to just have a plan in place so that you don't even have to think about it, worry about it, and your family doesn't have to think about it and worry about it. If there's a major accident and you need to sell your house to pay for care or major surgeries or something, right? Your family's going through a hard enough time. They don't need to be going through court to get the same power they could have had with you a quick signature on a document from a lawyer or notary.
Yeah.